Carolyn here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm gel printing with fabric. And by the way, what I'm doing with the fabric, you can do the exact same technique on paper. Now with this, the thing I really want you to notice is how much it changes with each layer, because this is where we're going to end up, but it definitely doesn't look like that until the very end of the process. I'm going to start by placing that stencil directly onto a naked gel plate. Notice how I kind of push the stencil down? Well, I did that so that the gel plate would grab that stencil. It's going to hold it in place. It's not going to wiggle and move, even though I'm going to brayer this paint right over it. Since I'm going to be printing this onto fabric, you might be wondering if there's anything that I'm doing differently at this point. And there is just a little something different than if I was doing it on paper. Because this is going into fabric, which is more absorbent than paper, I am using just a little bit more paint when I want to have that solid color. And now in comes the fabric. I'm just going to put it on top of it. I'm going to press it down to make sure that I get a bunch of that paint to transfer onto the fabric. Oh, and you might be wondering if this is a special kind of fabric for this. Nope, nothing special whatsoever. In fact, this was the least expensive cotton fabric that I could find. Oh, and by the way, if you've got some fabric on hand that you want to do this with, go for it. There's nothing special about this fabric that I'm using here. Whatever you've got on hand, I'm sure will be great to do this. Now the stencil that I just used, that one was called Crimp, and this one here, this one is called Crease. And I think Yvonne came up with some of the greatest names for these when she designed these stencils for over at stencilgirlproducts.com. Now if you're thinking, wow, this process seems just like what she did with that teal paint, you are absolutely correct. You put the stencil on the plate, you roll some paint over it, and then you take the pull. That's the gist of what gel printing is. And when those pulls layer one on top of the other, it can really change the look. Now, why am I putting a little more paint on there? Because it looks like I've got plenty. Well, that's because this is going onto fabric, and fabric will absorb the paint more than paper will. So I will use just a little bit more paint when I'm doing it on fabric. Now, as I put this on top of here, you might be wondering if I'm going to carefully line this up, if it's going to be about precision. And no, it's really not going to be about that. I just wanted to make sure the fabric covered the gel plate. I didn't try and line anything up here or get it precise and perfect. I just wanted to make sure I had fabric over the entire plate. I'm doing this on fabric, but what would it look like if I was doing this exact same process on paper? Well, this will give you an idea. Here we are at 2 layers with that teal and that yellow, but this time it's on book text. So what I'm sharing here works both on paper and on fabric. But now let's see what happens when layer number 3 comes into it. Now as I'm adding the stencil called Crinkle here, my goal is to simply cover the gel plate. That is the only thing that I'm concerned about. Exactly where it is. I'm not trying to line anything up with any of the other 2 layers. I'm just putting this thing on here and getting some paint on it. And speaking of paint, if you've got a hawk eye for videos, you might have noticed that I've used 3 different brands of paint when doing this. And all of these paints, they're all acrylic paints. They are not designed for fabric. It is just a regular acrylic paint. And the reason why I can do that is because I'm not planning on washing this. So what I'm going to do with this fabric is not something I'm throwing into the washer over and over again. So I'm not going to worry about using a fabric paint for it. But what if you do want to do this on something that's going to be washable? Well, then just simply use fabric paints, or you can take something like GAC 900 by Golden and mix that in with your acrylic paints to turn them into more of a textile paint. And by the way, I will have everything linked down below for you, so if you need any of those things, they're down in the description. Now, I really loved how it looked with 3 layers, but I'm going to bring in a 4th layer of black paint, and wow, is that going to change how it looks. I'm bringing back the Crinkle Stencil here for the 4th layer, and that does create a little bit of a challenge that I'll explain in just a moment. But my first challenge is getting the black paint on there. See, I put the paint on there, I'm brayering it around, and as I'm doing it, I realize, oh, that's more paint than what I really wanted. And so if you've ever put more paint on the plate than you wanted to, just know that we all do that. It happens. When that does, all you do is remove some of the paint. So here, I'm just putting a little piece of book text on there lightly, lift it up, and bonus print here. Kind of like all those fun lines in that one. I'm going to set that one aside and save it. And so now I can just even out the paint a little bit with the brayer, and it is ready to go. So even though I made that big old oops of Too much black paint, it's an easy thing to correct. Gel printing is so forgiving. Too much paint, take some off. Not enough, add a little bit more on. So now comes the one time in this process where I'm going to think about where something is being placed. Because for those first 3 layers, I'm like, put it anywhere, doesn't matter. So why is this layer different? Well, that's because I used the exact same stencil for layer number 3 with the pink that I'm going to use for layer number 4 with the black. And what I want to avoid is actually everything lining up here from layers 3 and 4. So one of the best ways to do that is simply turn the stencil when I put it on the plate. But I can't remember if I did that or not. So another option is turn the fabric or the paper. All that matters is that everything does not line up. So as I'm putting this fabric on here, the only thing that I'm making sure of is that things don't actually line up perfectly and precisely. And you'll see why once I lift this up. I do want to have a lot of that black paint transfer. I want it to be a really dark black on this. So I want to make sure a lot of that paint transfers over. So that's why I'm rubbing my hands on a little bit more than if I would if it's paper. And I'm also going to do some peeking. I'm going to look under a corner and see if the paint is transferring as much as what I want. And if it's not, hint, it wasn't there. I'm going to give it a little more time, keep rubbing those hands on it to help that paint be grabbed by the fabric. And before I take the big pull, I am going to check one more time. Oh, I'm liking how that looks. So now I'm ready to just lift that fabric up. Now that 4th layer, that completely changed the look of this print. And that's one of the cool things about layering. You just never know when you're 1 layer away from a great big shift. I'm going to show you here the 4 layers side by side so you can see the impact of each one as they built up. That is one of the great things about stencils and gel plates is how easy it is to create layers. And what you've seen in this video, it is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with stencils and a gel plate. So I've actually got an entire workshop called Stencil-rific Layers that is dedicated solely to exploring all the things that you can do with stencils. And it is loaded with techniques that show you that last little step that takes a print from great to wow. So an example of that here is this one. And this again is using that black paint and how you get that black paint to pop, just those subtle little spots of it. It's one simple little layer and it's as easy as what you've seen in this video. It's just knowing what layer to put where and when with the stencil. So anyway, if you're interested in knowing about how to get more out of the stencils that you have to create a whole bunch of different looks and kinds of prints using the paints that you have, the stencils that you have, then check out Stencil-rific Layers. All the details are over at acolorfuljourney.com. Once the paint's dry on your fabric, what can you do with it? Well, you can take big pieces like this and cut them down into smaller pieces so that you've got them to use in whatever it is you like to do. Now, because this is fabric, obviously you can sew it, but you can also still use it in a collage. You can use it in your art journal. It's just this wonderful textural piece of colored pattern play that you've created. Now, one of the things I've been experimenting with and getting into a little bit is art quilting. And I am by no means knowledgeable in this whatsoever, but I'm diving in and playing. So I'm going to show you how I am using this gel print to create something for an art quilt. I'm going to cut some letters out of this fabric and I'm going to use a stencil to help me. It's going to take the pressure off in terms of keeping things uniform, as well as takes the pressure off when drawing the shapes, that kind of stuff. So I love to use stencils. Now I could do it right on the top of the fabric like that, except it's really hard for me to see where my pencil lines are and where I'm going to cut because it's such a busy fabric. So I'm going to work on the back side. But if I'm working on the back side of the fabric, I need to use the back side of the stencil. So I have to remember to flip that stencil over, and then I'm simply going to trace it. I'm using a pencil here to do it, but obviously anything you're comfortable using, you can use to do it. Now this stencil, this letter R, has 2 parts to it. But when I cut it out in fabric, I want it to just have 1 part. So over those 2 little areas there, well, that's a really easy fix. Because once I lift the stencil up, I'm simply going to take that pencil and draw the lines across it. And I'm drawing those lines there to help me remember where to cut. That's all it is. It's a guide for where I'm going to cut. Now what I'm doing in this process is basically what I would do as if I was doing this with paper. Had I done this print on paper and I was creating something on, say, a canvas or a collage, that kind of thing, this is how I would do it. And I'm translating it to fabric here. Now, because fabric is a new thing for me, it's a world that's just starting to open up to me. If you see something like, Carolyn, there's a better way to do this, there's an easier way to do it, feel free to let me know in the comments, those of you with more experience with fabric. Now, one thing that I did learn that translates very well from paper to fabric is the size of your scissors. Because small scissors, when cutting around something like this, make it a lot easier than attempting it with large scissors. And yes, my mother did train me well. Those are fabric-only scissors that I'm using. That was burned into my soul at a very young age. I'm going to be sewing these letters onto this background fabric, and something I learned very, very quickly is I don't like using straight pins if I don't have to. So what I'm going to use is a kid's glue stick here, and I am simply going to glue all the letters in place. Once they're all on there, then I'm going to head over to the machine. Now I'm simply going to sew around the edge of the letter. And if you're thinking, wow, that's not really precisely exactly, yeah, that's true. It's not. When I said I'm new to this, I'm not kidding. Now, even though I don't have a ton of skills with this sewing machine, I'm still thoroughly enjoying it, even though it's not perfect. Because that's one of the things that I absolutely love about play. It can be fun even if you don't know exactly what you're doing. Here's what it looks like once all of the letters have been sewn on. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, if you know of somebody that you think would enjoy this, share it with them so they can join in the fun too. Now, if you'd like to know more about what I do, what I'm up to, or check out my workshops, it's all over on my website at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.